you all so much for coming out today. This is just a wonderful turnout for our program. I am Marisa Hughes, and I'm the chair of the Lake Monticello Wildlife Committee. And we very, very much appreciate this kind of turnout for uh, topics on how to beautify the natural environment here at Lake Monticello. Before I introduce our esteemed speaker, I want to do a quick plug on our program that we've been working on since 2020. It's the National Wildlife Federation's community-wide certification of Lake Monticello through their Community Wildlife Habitat Program. We've been, as I said, been working on this since 2020, and in the last year, we achieved 150 points in the first category, which was through educational programming, outreach, and administration. And now we're down to the last 150 points, which comes through certifying individual yards and common areas as habitats. We had to get 150 points in that. We are at 135 as of today. So thank you all so much for your help moving toward that. We are 15 yards away from being certified as a community. And some of the benefits of community-wide wildlife gardening are some of the topics that I think our speaker will be talking about is increasing ecological diversity and resilience and overall environmental health. Better water, better air, better tree canopy, and also um, we will be receiving recognition by the National Wildlife Federation. There are some really cool resources from the National Wildlife Federation as soon as we're certified. One is the National Plant Finder. It's an online resource. It's nationalplantfinder.org at National Wildlife Federation, and you can kind of plug into your area and you can see what native plants are available in your area, and you can purchase them actually through that site. So if anybody is interested, there is information on the application process at our table. There are these cool cards that talk about the criteria for certifying your habitats, and we just very much appreciate your support. So we will get right to our program. Our esteemed speaker is Ellen Stewart on Kens.
That's very close.
Thank you. She is currently the executive director of the Virginia Wilderness Committee. Prior to this, she worked at USGS and VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University. She is a PhD research ecologist, and you are specializing, I believe, in the impact of disturbance and climate change on ecological resilience.
Yes.
Well, welcome to
You did
Lake
do your
Monticello.
research. Yes, so she gave a wonderful background. My name is Ellen Stewart-Enkins. As was said, I'm now the executive director at the Virginia Wilderness Committee. And we work really on federal policy and getting areas designated as wilderness, which is the highest level of protection possible for federal and public lands. But I also, have for a long time been interested in and practicing native plant gardening, creation of monarch way stations, a variety, helping to make landscapes more resilient, store more stormwater. I mean, there's plenty of things that I'll get into on here as I go through. This little icon here is something I started with my daughters during COVID, actually. We call it Native Plants by Elm. And when they were 5 and 7, they started planting milkweed with me from seed and growing it. And we give out something like 800 seedlings of milkweed every year. And then plenty of other native plants we've added to that repertoire for each spring, because their school is the Monarchs. That's their mascot. And when they started there was no milkweed anywhere. And for those of you who don't know, milkweed is the only host plant for their caterpillars. So without milkweed present, they don't have anything for their caterpillars to eat. You don't have more monarchs. And so it's really crucial. And I'll go further into that as we talk, but that's where this comes from, and it's something that we've continued to do. And the signs you see here in the front, kind of scattered through here, is also a product of that effort. We started a big garden at their school, a native plant garden, and through time I was seeing different needs, educational needs for the community, and I couldn't find appropriate signs with the right information anywhere online, so I decided to make my own. And so the girls and I gathered our pictures and created these, and feel free at the end to come look at them and take a look. So this is just a really quick overview of the perks of planting natives, which were already touched on a bit by Marissa. but these plants are already adapted to your local region. And because of that, you don't need to, the first year while they establish, it's important to water regularly because those roots are getting established. But after that, unless there's a big drought period, or they're planted in the wrong location, let's say you have a plant that likes dry areas and you plant them down in kind of a wetter location, that's not going to be as appropriate of an area. But if they're planted in an appropriate area, you shouldn't have to continue to water them like you do your regular lawn. You leave for vacation and you need to get a friend to make sure that they come and take care of your plants. So that's one nice perk, um, just in terms of maintenance, right? And then they're also, as I've now mentioned several times, there are different host plants for our native butterflies. And native bees need them as well too. And so if you want to have a more resilient overall community, this goes for food sources, wildlife, even just somebody who likes to bird watch, all of this, right? It's all supported by these native plants. So there are a lot of common myths and concerns that people have when it comes to gardening with native plants versus our non-native ones or more exotic species. And one of these is that people don't want to get stung. A lot of these we do plant for the bees, and so it does attract bees, many different species of them. I'll tell you that the majority of native bees never sting. They don't sting. Unless you're going to grab them with your hand and hold them really tightly, they're not going to sting you. And even then, a lot of times, I've held these bees multiple times by accident, usually, and I have not gotten stung. And I'm in these gardens all the time. The only time I've gotten really stung has been by when I was, helping my friend with their honeybees. I got stung that time, and that was not at one of the gardens I work in. And honeybees aren't native, though I still like them. Uh, and when I was out doing research, and I accidentally stepped on a nest of yellow jackets. But otherwise, despite being outside really all the time, I haven't gotten stung. So that's one thing to know. You will see more pollinators and bees of different sizes and colors, but it's not something to be worried about. They're very docile, and a lot of them don't sting at all, and really don't want to. And then another one is that people will worry that, oh, native plants, they work in naturalistic gardens or on prairies, but they're hard to tame, and I won't be able to get them to work or look nice in my landscape. That's also, it's that's it can be true if you pick the wrong species, which I'll have resources on here for you, so that you don't have to worry as much about that. But you can make really, really gorgeous landscapes that are appealing. My garden at home, I have flowers all year round, and they're all native. There's always something blooming. And so, and again, I'll show you those examples if you want to have that same impact and effect in your yard. This is just I did this morning before I left a quick Google search of native plant landscapes or gardens in Virginia, and it's not showing up very well. But do it yourself when you get home. Go to Google, type it in. These are just multiple examples of different landscapes using only native plants, or mostly native plants that are beautiful. And again, a lot of our native plants will not just take over. So don't be concerned as much about that. I'm happy to answer questions at the end, and I have lists available as well of and how ones that spread by rhizomes if you want to fill an area, or if you don't, so not to plant that there. I have those resources. Okay, well, this is a picture of Carolina jessamine. It's just a close-up of some of the flowers. These are vines that they will grow. They can grow as ground cover, or they can grow up if you have a trellis. These ones actually bloom generally from late February through April or May. So when other things have not started yet, you'll see these yellow blooms. I've had one that actually bloomed for 15 months straight, which was wonderful. Native. I have about 4 or 5 growing in different locations in my yard, and then I have some more at the garden, and all of them have bloomed at least 4 months each year, and most of them longer. Again, one of them the whole year. So this is a really nice one that I recommend. And that there's a myth even about this plant, and that's that it will poison honeybees. It doesn't poison honeybees. There's there is if they were only going only for this plant, everything in moderation. So if you only drink alcohol, or you only drink, only have something, one thing, and alcohol's a bad example because that is a little toxic for us. If you only drink milk and you have nothing else, eventually it's going to impact you, right? So there was one experiment done a long time ago where this was their only nectar source, and they didn't thrive after a while because they need more than one nectar source. And so you might see that if you Google the plant occasionally. You'll also see people counteracting that. You know, don't believe everything that you read on the internet, as we all know. So this is not something you have to be concerned about. Um, and again, they're beautiful, and I love them. I have a lot of them. Um, and so native plants, there's the myth that native plants don't provide year-long interest. You look around, and you might see, oh, the leaves are off of most of the trees and things look pretty plain. Again, this is what we're seeing as we just kind of drive along. If you plant the right plants in your yard, you will have year-round interest. We do have a lot of native evergreen trees for the larger specimens. There's inkberry and other ones that keep their foliage. And again, there's a lot of these plants with berries that will hold those. Some will get eaten, and you'll get to see birds. But you will be able to have year-round interest. Some of them, like common yarrow, have a really beautiful seed head that I keep all year round. The birds love to eat it. It helps to supply them during the months where they have less to eat, and it's attractive. Then there is another one that they're not as pretty, and hopefully my pictures will show otherwise for you all that they are. All right, and then does it all have to be native? The garden I made at my kids' school is all native because I want it to be a resource for people to come visit. We have little plaques up in front of all different plants to tell them what it is, and a complete list so that they can come and say, oh, I like that. I want to plant that in my garden. And your yard doesn't have to be entirely native plants. If there's a species that makes you really happy, and you love how it smells or how it looks, and it's not invasive, and I'll explain what I mean by invasive in a minute, because this is also a term that people misuse a lot, um, then go for it. You can plant that too. A recommendation that I generally give, and I looked it up before I came, and their certification also gives, is 70%. If you can get your yard up to 70% native plants, that's wonderful. Gold star. A lot of people, haven't done that yet, and so please do. If you want to go 100% native, great. But make sure you like your yard and you're happy with it. If there's something else you like, you can go for it. Like I said on here, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Some people find it overwhelming when they enter into this realm of native gardening. The plants that can be hard to find if you go to your standard Lowe's or somewhere. It's really difficult. There are some native plants there, not many. So it can feel overwhelming at first, but start small and kind of go from there. I did want to put a few of the worst offenders of invasive plants. So people think of invasive in gardens, and this can mean to some, oh, it spreads all over, right? Some people think of certain natives as weeds, and I'll tell you which ones if you don't want those spreading over. Um, and they say, oh, that's an invasive plant. When I say invasive, what I mean is it's an exotic plant, exotic species that is not traditionally from here. It might be from another country where we share a climate. We share a climate with large parts of China. We have a lot of invasives from Japan, from England, and that's because they also have temperate climates. They don't have the same predators here, and they have not co-evolved with our species. Before I go to these, I don't want to forget to tell you privet, English privet, Japanese privet, Chinese privet, very invasive. They sell them all over. It's privet, privet. I would avoid that. It will spread other places in your yard too, and it does spread to the forest surrounding you. And even if you say, "Oh, this plant's not invasive in my yard," it's pollinating other other areas, and it is helping to facilitate the spread. Yes. Um, and so privet is one that there's not a picture of, but we wanted to mention. I also have a picture there of English ivy, the one that's on the far on your far right over there as an English ivy. I'm sure you've seen it around. It's pretty. It is pretty, but it spreads vigorously. It will choke trees out. It will cover areas of your garden. Also, mosquitoes really like to breed under the leaves. They don't just need that standing water. They love to go under the cool ivy leaves. They'll get moisture on the undersides of these leaves, and that's enough for them to breed. So if you have a mosquito problem and you don't know why, because you don't have standing water, but you have English ivy, that's likely why. So keep that in mind. Then another one I have on here are Bradford pears. I heard a groan, a little collective groan. Um, so right now they're flowering. You can see them all up and down the highway. Yes. And it's, nice to see those flowers early. There are other plants that are flowering as well now. We have red buds starting to flower and bloom. And those are a wonderful native tree. Pretty soon we'll have our dogwoods, and we also will have service berries coming up any day now. But Bradford pears are really, really invasive. Again, right now is a prime time to see them because you most of the time right now, if you see white flowers out on the side of the highway on a tree, it is escaped Bradford pear. Um, Reasons that they're damaging. Sometimes people are like, well, it's still growing, it's fine. Well, there are other species that grow, in the understory, and these Bradford pears leaf out earlier than the other trees as well. So red buds, for instance, will flower, but their leaves don't come out quite this early. Um, the Bradford pears will start to leaf out. They shade the understory, and they prevent a lot of our spring ephemerals and other species from growing in and from blooming. And then that takes away the support for the native wildlife in the area. That's another reason. Another one is they self prune. This is just annoying for us. If you park under a Bradford pear and there's a storm, you might come out to see some damage because they drop their branches, they self prune. Our urban planners didn't realize this decades ago when they first planted them, but that's also frustrating. And they've hybridized with some of our native species, and now some of the new ones coming up have thorns. So that's also not fun. So there's a lot, and I don't like the smell of the flowers. Most people don't. You might, but lots of stuff bad. I could go on and on. I'll stop though on Bradford pear. And then Nandina is another one. And it does look pretty. It has these red berries. If you want something like Nandina in your yard, there's but not Nandina, and I'll tell you why it's not good in a minute. But there's strawberry bush. That's has a similar droop berry, and that berry will stay long through the winter. There's also elderberry that gives these nice, pretty red berries as well. But Nandina, yes, it's invasive. I've explained all of that, but also these berries are poisonous to some of our local native bird species. And so they go eat these, and then they have time to spread the seed by pooping. But then they die, or they get really sick. Some of them, So this is just something to keep in mind. They do eat them because they don't know not to eat them because they did not evolve with the species. They mistake it for a red berry they can eat. The next thing you need to do is choose which species that you would like to, if you want to choose a species. You might just want to do all native plants and have a variety of species. But in addition to that, you might say, I really love bluebirds, and I want to attract them to my yard. So bluebirds are beautiful. A lot of people like them. I do. They're really docile, and they'll come back year after year once they've established where they like to nest. They also eat a lot of the invasive insects, which is great. They're a predator of invasive insects that we don't appreciate. So another perk of that. So some trees that support bluebirds are dogwood trees. I will just say one word of caution. There is a blight going around and impacting dogwood trees. I know it's gone through Richmond in the last couple of years. Not all of them have been hit with it. Generally, if they're in an open area with a lot of sun, it doesn't impact them quite as much. So if you have an area in your yard that has good sun, you can still plant them, and you're likely to have it thrive. But just know that that is something that the nurseries will tell you too, that dogwoods are being hit with this blight. So I would not recommend planting it in an already crowded area of your yard. Is the one thing. And there are more resistant varieties they're creating. I normally don't tell people to plant, if you can avoid it, plant cultivars. A cultivar is something we've selectively bred. Um, and the reasons for that are sometimes they have less nectar content or other things that are needed, and it decreases the genetic diversity. If you can only find a cultivar, I still think it's better than planting something invasive or something else. So, and then coral honeysuckle is another one that supports not only bluebirds, but a myriad of species. Coral honeysuckle is different than Japanese honeysuckle and Chinese honeysuckles. Those are the ones that at least when I was a kid, we'd go and the invasive ones, the Chinese and the Japanese, we'd go take the flowers off and suck the honey out. Yes, and suck the honey out. They're everywhere, right? And that's because they're invasive. And they will cover trees also and smother them and shade out whole areas. Although one time I saw one smothering privet, and then they were like going battling. When I see two invasives battling each other, it's insane. Yeah, yes. But coral honeysuckle is our native honeysuckle, and it has these kind of reddish, sometimes yellow. They look like little trumpets, not the big trumpet flower. That's also native though. But the smaller ones, it's beautiful. Mine bloom 8 to 9 months out of the year. And this is true for the last 4 years straight. So once it's established and happy, you'll also get really long blooms with coral honeysuckle. The berries support bluebirds and other species. They also like blueberries. We do have some native blueberries. There's the northern highbush blueberry. Deer also like blueberries. So I don't mind deer, but just so you know, if it's something that gets to you, that it's fine. I plant my plants so that all wildlife can enjoy it. I will say one thing is that they leaf out a little earlier. So if you want stuff to grow underneath it that needs that early spring sun, be aware of that. And there are some native varieties that they've been able to breed to be more resistant. There's native wisteria that grows at it grows quickly, but half the rate of the Japanese Chinese wisteria. Doesn't grow as high, doesn't do as much like the damage that you'll see that wisteria is known for doing. It also really easily roots. If you know somebody with native wisteria and you want some.
Got that too.
Wonderful. And it usually blooms twice. So that's nice each season. And then also for perennials, the purple cone flowers they support them a lot, as do different sunflowers. Goldfinches are another one that people commonly love. I do as well. They really like sunflowers, and sunflowers, I'm not just talking about the big tall ones you see. Those are nice, but there's a whole bunch of different sunflowers. There's the woodland sunflower, which is pictured over there and on your far right. Next to it is coral honeysuckle that I was just discussing. That's coral honeysuckle here. It's one of mine. And those two support goldfinches a lot, and also the ruby-throated hummingbird. So if you like those as well, I have not had a bird feeder or a hummingbird feeder in my yard in a decade, but I get all these birds all the time because of the plants, right? And then you don't have to clean them as much either, because you don't have to clean the plants like you have to clean the bird feeders. Also, white yarrow, and I'll have some pictures of that in here as well, is one that goldfinches like to eat. That's the one I was talking about that keeps the seed head throughout the winter, and it looks really pretty. That's white yarrow. So goldfinches like it, and again, round interest as well. And then black-eyed Susan and brown-eyed Susan too. And I put this little map on here. So in Virginia, we're lucky because we have goldfinches year-round. Some areas they only, this is a migratory species, so some you'll only have them in the summertime, some, mostly in winter. Virginia's right in the middle of that range to have the goldfinches year round. So if you want some color that pops into your yard throughout the year, then goldfinches are a good one. So plant for monarchs. I mentioned them earlier. Monarchs are an endangered butterfly species, both in the West. There's the Western monarch, and in the East, the Eastern monarch. Their populations have gone down to 10% of what they were 20, 30 years ago. So way down. And there's different reasons for this. You have your general culprits like too much pesticide use, or the big one here is the fact that we're not planting as much milkweed or letting it grow. These milkweed used to grow in between agricultural crops, And so, I mean, you'd have all the corn and everything, and then you'd have milkweed and other species growing in between. Now they have created strains of corn that are resistant to herbicides. And so they'll plant this corn and then they'll spray the whole crop with an herbicide, kill the other plants all around it. The corn survives because it's resistant to the herbicide. And then you have the herbicide leaking into our water sources, which is lovely. But also then you don't have milkweed and other species that our wildlife depend on. And so if you don't have the larval food, host plant food source for those caterpillars, then you just don't get the monarchs. And these are a migrating species, so I won't, I know people are really familiar, but hopefully by this point with monarchs, but I don't want to assume too much. So they migrate, they go all the way up to Canada and then down to Mexico. It's about 4 to 5 generations of monarch butterflies to get all the way up there and then down. And they need these milkweed stops to continue their migration along the way. And so I get them every year. If you plant milkweed, you'll likely get them. There are different species of milkweed. Butterfly milkweed it's bright orange, beautiful, does not spread by rhizomes. So it can spread by seeds. If you don't want it somewhere, it's easy to not have it. I have not had a bunch sprout up. So that's the butterfly milkweed. Swamp milkweed also does not spread by rhizomes. These are two that are really easy to tame in gardens. And then they kind of support the butterfly at different times of its migration as well. Joe pieweed is a wonderful nectar source. They don't eat the leaves. The caterpillars won't eat those leaves, but they do pollinate, and they need that nectar source. Earlier on in the season, I've noticed, and there are recent studies that show a lot of times early in the season, they'll choose the swamp milkweed, and then later in the season, they might choose the butterfly milkweed. You've probably heard of common milkweed as well, and that's even taller. That's a very tall milkweed. That one does spread by rhizome. So that's not something I mind in our school garden because we want to have everything covered. But if you don't want to have milkweed spreading all throughout your garden, then don't plant the common milkweed. Choose one of these other varieties because it will. It will spread. You know how mint spreads? Mint spreads very quickly and readily through its root system. It's a similar way to how the common milkweed will spread. But again, not butterfly, not swamp. I do have a list of all of this information. So if I'm going too fast, don't worry. It's all the plants are listed and how they spread and when they bloom, all of that as well. So you'll have that resource. So the nectar supply is also something you want to think about when you're planting your garden with monarchs in mind. And that's Joe pieweed's a great one. Goldenrods and asters are really important, not only for monarchs, also for bees. They bloom really late in the season and continue to bloom usually through the end of the monarch migration, which is early November-ish, and phlox as well. And phlox in particular is also a long bloomer. It can bloom and bloom all season, throughout the growing season. Our phlox has already started at the garden, and there's different types. Other thing about phlox, this is one you can find often at Lowe's and other places if you are having trouble getting to a specialized native plant nursery and you can't find something and you want to start getting natives in your garden. Usually they'll have creeping phlox, moss phlox, woodland phlox, all different types at Lowe's, and they're native. They are native. It's possible that they've sprayed them with insecticide or herbicide, so you can ask and they should be able to tell you if they have been sprayed, if that's something that you're concerned about, so make sure you ask. But you can find it at most retailers, which is great. More on the monarchs, so you can go as far as you could get 2 certifications. You could get the National Wildlife certification. You could also get a monarch way station certification, and they send you this nice little sign and a certificate as well. How you do this is you need at least 10 milkweed plants growing so that they have that larval source. And then you also want to have different nectar plants for them to have throughout the season as well in their migration. Something really key too, if you want them to be able to breed, is to have a water supply. That can be through a bird bath, that can be through a little pond. You can go out and just spray an area. If there's one area that it's usually wet in your yard, and let's say it dries up, just go out and spray it a little bit. they don't mind mud. They need some water, and this is because the males actually need the salts produced in kind of in that muddier water to produce semen and other nutrients that they need, and that facilitates breeding. So it's not only for them to stay hydrated; they actually need it to be able to breed with each other. So water source is key. And then if you can add shelter, if you have woody trees or shrubs or other standing stem, it helps them feel protected. It's also when it's cold, they can't move anymore. We've had monarchs at our school garden the kids will find and they're like, it's not moving. Is it dead? Don't touch it. It's not dead. It's cold out today. They'll find a good place to hide and they'll just put their wings down and wait till it warms up enough again. They need sun in about 70 degrees Fahrenheit to be able to fly. So again, the sun, if there's hard sun, that can help them sooner. But just so you know, if you see one perched and it's not moving and it's chilly, it's not dead. Just let it be. So these are all the things that you'll need for that. This is the caterpillar here, the monarch caterpillar. It's often confused with swallowtail caterpillars. And swallowtails are another native butterfly. And they will eat, you'll see them on dill and parsley, and the native species you'll see them on are golden Alexanders. And they're also wonderful. They're luckily not as endangered, but we have a bunch of different swallowtail species. The swallowtails don't have those big antennae. And when they're littler, they look like bird droppings. It's true. They are really fascinating to watch because every time they molt, and caterpillars molt 5 times before they pupate into their chrysalis, every time they molt, they look totally different. Some of them start to look like little snakes sometimes. The spice bush ones do. They're very cute. Anyway, I won't go down the rabbit hole of caterpillars, but the monarchs, they have the same pattern for every molting. The antennae just get a little bit longer as they go through those 3rd, 4th, and 5th molts. So now, where do you start, right? So one thing is to know what growing conditions you're planting for. This is the case when you're doing other landscaping too. How much sun do you have in this area of the yard? How much shade? Where's wet and dry? So make sure you get a kind of a good handle on that. And some areas in the winter might have no sun at all. And then as the seasons change, it does get more sun because of the tilts of the earth and all of that. So don't just look in one season, try to, keep your eyes open throughout. So know your growing conditions. There's some plasticity in our native plants on how much sun they need. Some of them will grow, with 2 hours of sun or with 9 hours of sun, and they're not going to mind. You'll get just more blooms where it's sunnier. Though some of the plants that do really want a lot of sun, if they don't have enough, eventually they'll kind of flop down. That's fine, as long as it doesn't bother you. They'll grow up from where they flopped down if a big rainstorm comes and they flop, or you can stake them up, and that works too. This is a picture of what the garden was before it was a garden at the kids' school. It was just a big open field with a few trees. This was a beautiful oak tree. That's great native plant, the great native tree to have. Supports a ton of caterpillar species and also filters water. The other two were non-native in the front here and don't support sadly any caterpillars, but it was just a field otherwise of grass. No one used it. We have a ton of fields of grass at the school that the kids love to play in, and no one ever touched this one. And so we said, hey, no one's ever in here. It's not used for anything. Can we plant a garden? And they said yes. So it was great. The PTA helped us raise a bunch of money, and we went for it. So that's what that looked like before. You can put the next. So we started out, and as you'll start out, kind of make a plan or a sketch of kind of the infrastructure you want. These were the trees that were already here. And then we made it a little outdoor classroom, which you kind of see in this. We made sure we include our water source, had native shrubs. And then through all of this, we were planting different perennials. It was all pretty sunny there, similar conditions in that area. So just kind of try to have a little sketch. It doesn't have to be on PowerPoint. You can just write it down. But just so you know, it's better when you go to the store with that already. I go crazy in plant stores sometimes and can buy way too many. So you don't want to come out with a whole bunch of sun species and then hardly anything for shade. So another tip is to start small because you don't want to overwhelm yourself right away. and then want to quit because you try to do it all at once. So, for instance, at the school when we started, we made these small little garden beds, got some species established, and then slowly over time we expanded the garden beds to fill the whole area. But give yourself that time. It's okay to have other species there in the meantime if you need to, or grass or whatever. You can take your time. Just the other thing you could do is to try beginning with a few keystone species, see the difference, see the amount of birds and insects and other things you get in your yard, and then maybe you're going to want to plant more. So goldenrod is a great one for that. Again, milkweed's not just great for monarchs. We see butterflies and bees, all types of them on our milkweed, especially when they're blooming, and they bloom for a really long time as well. Um, so start with a few keystone species and then go from there. As I kind of touched on earlier, sometimes it can be really hard to find native plants. Um, and luckily, this is becoming less and less difficult because more people are seeing the benefits of native gardening and wanting and asking for these plants. There are native plant sales and markets that will be advertised in the newspaper or on Facebook or on Nextdoor throughout the spring. So there's always that, but then there's also the Virginia Native Plant Society has a list of native plant vendors that they've certified. There's a few in Charlottesville, in the Charlottesville area, and I have them listed here for you. And again, I'll share this resource. These are live links on the PowerPoint, and so if you go click on them after, you'll be able to get to it. But the Hummingbird Hill Native Plant Nursery is one that's in Charlottesville. At Monticello, I was dropping my family off there today on my way here. They had a bunch of native plants outside that they have for sale. So the Thomas Jefferson Center for Historic Plants is at Monticello. They have a bunch of native plants there as well. There were bluebells there. If anybody's a bluebell fan, there were a lot out front. And then again, I said a few can be found at Lowe's. There's the different phlox species. They also have coral bells usually at Lowe's and other nurseries. Coral bells they have like a reddish leaf, and that can be really dark, deep red, purple to light. There's different species and varieties. You can usually find that as well. So you can do that. And then if you ever are in Richmond, let me know because we can't stop growing and pod like tons of different native species, my kids and I, and we're always giving them out. So don't hesitate if you're going to be in Richmond, to shoot me an email and say, "What do you have? Can I stop by and grab some?" Because we'll have something. We'll probably have a lot of some things, and we'd love to share because we want to spread this and like make it easier for people to find these native plants to garden with and grow. Um, I wanted to put this in here because I love blue mist flower. It's an always winner. It's really easy. I want to caution you that it is related to mint. It does not spread as crazily as your traditional mint does, but it will widen over time in its bed. It's not going to pop up way over there and way over there and take up everywhere, but it does over time incrementally spread. If you don't want it to spread, then you just take the outer part off and share it with a friend, and they'll have it too. Mine blooms from usually May all the way through November every year, and I have it growing in mostly shade that gets about 2 hours of sun each day, all the way to full sun, and it's happy in every condition I've put it in. It's the easiest, and so it's a great filler and it's beautiful. It gets these really, really deep purple or blue flowers. And the foliage can be kind of a reddish purple as well. There's some variation in there. So you can see the spectrum. But this is another great one. And the pollinators, they love it. So it supports a bunch of different species, again, of bees and butterflies. So if you want to start with something easy, blue mist flower is a great, easy one to start with as well. And I have a lot of it if you guys want some and want to come through Richmond. So I'm happy to share. Um, so then other long blooming ones. I mentioned blue mist flower, coral honeysuckle. It's a really long blooming. Again, mine all go 8 to 9 months. The first year you might only get 3 to 4 months as it is establishing because it's putting more energy into its root system. It really wants to establish that underground root system so the next year it can bounce back. But after that first year, you'll be getting a lot more blooms and for longer for period. It does like more sun. I have some growing in part shade, part sun. It's happy. It blooms. It doesn't have as many blooms as in the full sun. It's a vine. You can make it grow around trellises. different things. It won't strangle other plants. It won't strangle trees. It's really an easy one as well. It doesn't go wild. Threadleaf coreopsis, I'm saying it wrong. Coreopsis, thank you, coreopsis, there we go. It has a yellow flower, and it also blooms for quite a long time. And there are some non-native species of coreopsis. I'm saying it wrong again, probably. No. No, good, thank you. It's one of those ones I read for a long time before I ever said it out loud. And so there are some that are not native, none that I know of that are invasive. I haven't found any or heard of any that are invasive, but there's a lot of native ones and you'll find them again all over. So that's a good one. Common yarrow, which I mentioned before. And I will say this one by seed can spread easily. Like it has that kind of like leafy, not leafy, but it looks like lace foliage. People confuse it with Queen Anne's lace a lot. It's not the same, but it looks similar, and it blooms for. We had some of ours bloom all winter this year too. It will bloom really late into the season, sometimes the whole winter. So another great one. And so then I want to. People often struggle with shade. There's the shady area of my yard. I can't get anything to grow here. We have a lot of great plants that will grow in shade to part shade. This is part of my garden. At home, and you can see in here there's yellow wood poppy that's up here that starts blooming in late February, early March. Mine's been blooming for a few weeks now. So that's the yellow poppy. There's also not in this picture, but another one is Jacob's ladder, currently blooming. Wild geranium, that's these little pink ones here. So wild geranium doesn't need as much sun, or it doesn't like as much sun as the other geraniums that are not native that you'll see at a lot of plant nurseries. So wild geranium's a good one. There were also bluebells in that picture. Bluebells are ephemeral, which means that after they bloom, their foliage will die back. That's fine, you didn't kill it. It will come back the next late winter, early spring, and you'll have it again. It just only shows up above ground for about 3 months out of the year, and then it goes back down under. So don't worry. There's also green and gold here, and that works really well as a ground cover as well. I'm using all the common names to make it easier on both me and you. Some of them I struggle with the common name, but with a lot of these, again, I have that list that will have the common name and the scientific name for you. But green and gold's a good ground cover as well. And so is foam flower. And this one is usually a little easier to find too. Foam flower is a good ground cover, really pretty. And then there's also wild ginger. That's another good ground cover. And that will compete some with English ivy. And then I also wanted to give you some examples for part sun. Sorry, my slides did not save the last time, so that's why sometimes you're seeing these commas. I still know the material, so I'm just telling you instead of it being written. So butterfly milkweed's a great one in full sun and part sun. Again, that's that orange flower. There's also goldenrods. They really like full sun, but there are some species that will grow in part shade too. And there's a ton of different bloom times for goldenrod. This is not, is it called sneezeweed, the one people commonly get confused with it? It's not the same species. It looks similar. It's not the one that has that spreads allergies, or a lot of people are allergic to. So goldenrod is not that, but it does look a lot like it. So there's goldenrod, there's some common yarrow in here. Obedient plant is over here, and wild senna. Every year we get caterpillars on our wild senna. We get a lot of the cloudy sulfur. Cloudy sulfur butterflies are not endangered, but they are at risk. So if you want to support more species, wild senna is a great one to put in your yard. It has those little yellow flowers. The obedient plant also blooms for quite a long time. And it's called obedient plant because if you move the flowers with your fingers, they'll stay in that position, which is fun. Yes. Yeah. It looks a lot like penstemon or beard's tongue. They like to grow in the same places, and they're both native. So that's another good one. So these are just some small examples of different sun gardens. Sun is a lot easier to handle. We have a lot more for that. If you have pets and you're really concerned about planting something toxic to your pets because they like to eat plants and dig things up, I just wanted to put a list up here of the non-toxic ones that you don't have to worry about for your pets. if they do like to eat stuff in your garden. So this is just a simple little list. The shrub on here is Virginia rose. Carolina rose is another one. They're native roses. They're pink. Um, Beautiful. I had a picture on here. It's not there right now. But there's those roses. They do have some thorns, but not as much and not as pokey as the ones you see on the ones in the stores normally. So Virginia rose is a good one. Then you have the coral honeysuckle. I just love this plant. So you're going to see it all over. It's really good for so many things. But yeah, we have a lot that are not toxic. So if you do want to plant some of the other species that might be toxic to your pets and you're worried about that, if you can fence in a certain area, you know your pet better than I do. Um, Mine don't eat the plants, so I don't have to worry about it, but I know some do. So I also put some additional resources on here to share with you all. Um, and I will not go through each one of them. I do want to highlight the National Wildlife Federation site is a wonderful resource. Really, it has it pretty much everything most of these other sites have. I'm really impressed with it. So I would definitely check out the National Wildlife Federation. If you want to go look at other landscapes in the area that have good native gardens and see what they're growing, the Ivy Creek Foundation, they have a little farm and historic area. They have a native pollinator garden and a lot of their landscaping is also natives. So every time I go, I find something new that I get excited about. And then Monticello, as I've already mentioned, then they have a lot of native plants there and native plant gardens as well. So these are just two that I know of locally because I've gone to them and I can certify with from my own my own visitation that they have a great variety and labels as well on their native plants if you want to look at that. And then if you wanted to contact me afterwards for more questions, if you have other questions or want follow up, this is my email here. Um, the Virginia Wilderness Committee is on Instagram and on Facebook. Our website is down here at the bottom. If you want to follow the school garden and what we're doing there, it's Native Plants by Elm as well. I only have an Instagram for that one because I'm not on social media a ton, but I do like to share what's going on with the native plants. And then I also wanted to just mention, and there's no pressure, if you want to donate to Virginia Wilderness Committee, I did bring a little box over there that you can stick something in if you'd like to. Also on our website, there's a donate page. We are a nonprofit. We did just lose a $250,000 grant that we had from the federal government, which maybe we'll get eventually someday, but that's hitting us hard. And so if you can, I know there's lots of other places that need it as well, but it'd be great. All right. Well, thank you all very much for coming. Thanks for your questions. I had fun.